Hey everyone, welcome or maybe welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Sandra. I'm an occupational therapist on a mission to aggressively pay off student loan debt, budget intentionally, and build a life I love. Today, we're gonna be talking about one of my personal favorite budgeting tools, the sinking fund. If you've ever been hit with a big expense and thought, where the heck is this money gonna come from? This video is for you. We're gonna break down what a sinking fund actually is, why they can make or break your budget, how to set them up in a super simple, not overwhelming way, and some common mistakes that I see made. Let's get started with the basics. A sinking fund is money you set aside bit by bit for future expenses. These are different than an emergency fund because you know what it's going to be spent on. Think of it like this. If you know you're going to need new tires in 6 months, instead of waiting and being stressed out about a $600 bill, you just start setting aside $100 a month right now. By the time the expense comes around, it's no big deal because it's already paid for. So sinking fund is just a fancy way of saying saving up for something that you know you're going to spend on. The more heads up you have on expenses, the less it costs you every month. So sinking funds are not about saving in general, they're about saving for something specific. Every sinking fund should have a name and a purpose. Here's why sinking funds are such a game changer. First, they reduce financial stress. You're not scrambling when a car repair, a holiday, or an annual membership pops up. Second, they keep your budget realistic. So many budgets fail because people forget about non-monthly expenses. Insurance premiums, gifts, back to school. Sinking funds make your budget reflect real life, and they turn non-monthly expenses into monthly savings. And lastly, they create true freedom. Want to take a trip next summer? No worries. Your sinking fund helps you do it guilt-free and debt-free because it's part of your plan. Sinking funds can help build trust and mindset buy-in. They turn irregular expenses into predictable ones. This can reduce decision fatigue and improve your likelihood to stick to your budget because you're not constantly thrown off by unexpected or irregular expenses. They help you avoid panic spending or overspending on things like credit cards. Sinking funds help you shift from being reactive to proactive with your money. They also allow you to be intentional with your choices. When you know you have a certain amount to spend, you don't say yes to everything. That's not a bad thing. It just makes you consider your options and spend on what aligns with your values more. So how exactly do you use sinking funds? Here is my step-by-step approach. Step 1 is to list your irregular but expected expenses. Think seasonal, annual, or future costs. Common examples are holidays, gifts, travel, car maintenance, back to school, medical copays, home repairs, or things like subscriptions or regular fees. Step 2, estimate the total amount you'll need or what your goal is for that fund. For example, if you usually spend $600 at Christmas, write that down. If your car insurance is $900 every 6 months, jot that down too. Step 3 is to divide your goals by the number of months until the expense is due. If you have a set amount, like you're shopping for Christmas gifts and that's in 6 months, then you just divide by 6. If you're working towards something like home repairs and you don't necessarily know when you're gonna need to make a home repair, but you wanna have a sinking fund set aside for it, look at your goal and see what is realistic to save every single month until you get there. Your sinking funds are flexible. You can adjust how much you save for each one. So let's say that you wanna save for something like Christmas gifts a little more aggressively because you only have 6 months left in this year, and next year you know that you're going to be able to save a little bit less each month because you'll have the full year to save for it. Then maybe you save aggressively for Christmas gifts and less aggressively for your home repairs, and then you ramp up your home repairs when you're able to ramp down your Christmas gifts. Step 4, add your sinking fund contributions to your monthly budget. Just think of it as a bill that you have to pay yourself every single month. This also means that you have to set realistic targets that fit within your budget. If you want to set aside $600 in 6 months for Christmas, then you have to have $100 in order to do that. If you don't currently have $100 to set aside, you have to think of what you can cut, and that might include the $600 goal itself. Step 5 is to decide where you want to keep the money. You can use a separate savings account for each sinking fund, or you can use a savings account that allows you to separate your money into separate items within one account. I use Ally for this exact purpose because it allows me to have one account with separate buckets underneath that account. I also want to note that my sinking funds and emergency fund are in 2 entirely separate banks, but at the very least, I think it's a good idea to keep them in 2 separate accounts so that you're not confusing this money and it's a little bit harder to spend from your emergency fund. It might be helpful to use a spreadsheet or an app to track your sinking funds. I built a spreadsheet for myself that is available down below. In this spreadsheet, not only does it allow you to set a budget and targets for each category that rolls over into every month, you can also track every single expense you have, as well as the amount of money you put towards savings, investments, and debt. It also allows you to spend from your savings and see how that reflects in your balance. You could also go old school with cash envelopes. I recommend cash envelopes to people who are learning how to control their overspending. I personally personally use a combination of digital sinking funds and my budget tracker. A few of my current sinking funds include car maintenance, Christmas gifts, credit card subscriptions, and then my travel fund. I also save for concerts, but I don't save a regular amount every single month for this purpose. I don't know who or when I'm gonna see them, but I wanna have a little money set aside for tickets. It's not always about putting a ton of money aside every month. Even $10 to $20 can make a huge difference at the end of the year. I wanna quickly touch on some common mistakes that are good to avoid, especially if you're a beginner and wanna avoid some frustration. The first is you wanna look at all of your reoccurring expenses, even small ones. Things like a PO box renewal or your license fee can be enough to throw off your finances and make you feel frustrated. But you also wanna be cognizant and not overcomplicate things. Start with 3 to 5 categories and then work up from there. Another big mistake is not touching a fund when it's time for that fund to be spent. Sinking funds are meant to be spent. Spending from your sinking funds isn't a failure, it's just budgeting done right. You can still have a sinking fund even if you're paying off debt. I do. Sinking funds are for short to medium term savings. They are not the same as emergency funds or long-term investments. And of course, they help you stay consistent with your goals, so you're not thrown off by something like a car repair or a wedding gift. Sinking funds don't have to be complicated. They're just a way of being honest with yourself and your money. Life is full of both expected and unexpected expenses. But when you plan for the expected expenses, you're setting yourself up for success.